Welcome to the Criminal Imagination. The series Crime and Civilization begins with a simple question. What if the true purpose of law is not justice but control? Across centuries, crime fiction has recorded the political fears of its age, from cursed kings and cunning thieves to corrupt judges and silent witnesses. Each episode investigates how power operates through narrative, what it hides, who it condemns, and what happens when the system turns inward and begins to devour itself. Today, we step back to the 18th century, to one of the most influential and paradoxical novels in English literature, Henry Fielding's Tom Jones, a bawdy, chaotic, digressive masterpiece that asks a surprisingly modern question. What happens to morality when the state is useless? When courts are corrupt, laws are ornamental, and institutions exist only to maintain appearances? And we are going to answer that question, not through conventional and moral philosophy, but through the sharp-edged lens of Friedrich Nietzsche. Because in Tom Jones, morality does not descend from law, it performs, it imitates, it competes. And in weak societies, Nietzsche argued it becomes a weapon for the resentful. Published in 1749, The History of Tom Jones, a Foundling, is often celebrated as one of the first true novels in English, but it is more than that. It is also one of the earliest fictional depictions of a society without a functioning moral compass because its institutions are absurd. Set in a mid-Georgian England of rural estates, seedy inns, courtrooms, and highways, Tom Jones offers no single detective, no stable legal structure, and no meaningful law enforcement. Instead, justice is constantly improvised. Arrests happen on suspicion or social prejudice. Judges act out of whim. Clergymen are moral tyrants. And most importantly, morality is a mask, a stage prop for social advancement. We are in a pre-modern legal world. No organized police force, no forensic systems, no reliable due process. Instead, Fielding gives us a proto-bureaucratic state, spluttering and half-built, where virtue is assumed to belong to the rich and well-dressed, and sin is whatever makes the rich uncomfortable. In this landscape, Tom, our flawed, reckless, but deeply generous hero, isn't a criminal in the legal sense, but society treats him as one. Why? Because he does not conform, and that is the Nietzschean key. Before we can understand Fielding through Nietzsche, let's revisit what Nietzsche actually said about morality, particularly in On the Genealogy of Morals. Nietzsche divides morality into two types: master morality, the morality of the strong, creative, vital, and independent. It judges action based on values like strength, nobility, generosity, and affirmation of life. And slave morality, the morality of the weak, resentful, and socially constrained. Here, virtue becomes obedience, goodness becomes humility, chastity, and conformity. And behind every moral judgment lies resentment, the festering, unadmitted envy of those who can't live freely. Slave morality doesn't come from a higher principle. It arises when the weak turn their lack of power into a virtue and condemn the strong not because they are unjust, but because they remind the weak of their impotence. Now bring us back to Tom Jones. Who are the moral police of Fielding's novel? Blifil, Twackham Square, the prigs and Puritans who obsess over appearance, propriety, and rules. They are not interested in actual virtue, they are interested in control. And when someone like Tom appears, flawed but free, erratic but alive, they don't seek to correct him, they seek to destroy him. Because in Nietzschean terms, Tom is a noble figure. He does not pretend, he does not conform for advantage, he acts instinctively and often generously. His existence threatens the social order, not through crime but through vitality. And in weak societies, Nietzsche says vitality must be punished. Let's now examine the moral functionaries of Tom Jones and what Nietzsche might say about them. Blifil is perhaps the clearest embodiment of slave morality. He is outwardly obedient, pious, respectful, and well mannered. But these are not values he lives by, they are tactics. He resents Tom not because Tom is wicked, but because Tom is loved. Blifil's value is performance, a tool of social mobility. And when he can't match Tom's charisma or sincerity, he labels it immoral. That is resentment in action. Thwackum, the disciplinarian, represents institutional power without wisdom. He invokes religion, tradition, and punishment, but never justice. He doesn't seek to form character, only to punish deviation. And Square, the philosopher, claims to represent rational virtue, but his reason is endlessly compromised by flattery, favoritism, and fear of scandal. Together they form a trifecta of Nietzschean critique: the moralist, the enforcer, and the thinker, all corrupted by fear of vitality. None of them care whether Tom acts ethically. They only care that he does not perform their script. They want virtue as obedience, not authenticity. And so, morality becomes what Nietzsche feared it had become in Europe: a power game played with sacred words, a performance of righteousness masking envy and control. Tom, of course, is no saint. He drinks, he fights, he makes terrible decisions. But in Nietzsche's framework, none of these are disqualifying. What matters is not behavior but spirit, and Tom's spirit is unbroken, alive, uncalculating. Tom acts out of generosity, not strategy. He gives to beggars, he intervenes in fights, he protects the vulnerable. And when he errs, he takes responsibility, something none of his accusers ever do. What Fielding offers us in Tom is a non-bourgeois hero. He is not a capitalist, not a bureaucrat, not a moralist. He is a man of appetite and instinct, yet also of empathy and warmth. And crucially, he is punished not for what he does wrong, but for what he represents. He is punished for being alive in a dead society. Nietzsche argued that modern European morality was built not on truth or goodness, but on the fear of life. Christianity, bourgeois virtue, state rationality, all mechanisms to tame the wild, the spontaneous, the unpredictable. Fielding anticipates this. In Tom Jones, law does not punish crime, it punishes charisma. Morality does not reward goodness, it rewards conformity. And society does not fear evil, it fears freedom. Tom is therefore not just a rogue in a comic novel, he's the canary in a coal mine, the one man still breathing in a world where virtue has suffocated under appearances. So, where is the state in all this? Nowhere useful. Fielding was himself a magistrate, and he knew firsthand the absurdities of the English legal system. His novel mocks the inefficiency of trials, the corruption of constables, the way the law is applied arbitrarily to favor the well-connected and crush the poor. But the real critique is deeper. The state is not failing because it's absent, it's failing because it exists only to perform itself. Legal procedure replaces justice, titles replace merit, and everyone must pretend that this is order even as lives are ruined by it. Fielding, through satire, shows us the early stages of a bureaucratic state, one that punishes nonconformity without ever knowing why. Nietzsche would call this the triumph of reactive forces, a civilization that enshrines resentment and calls it law. Tom, as a result, is not a criminal in a world of law, he is a free man in a world of slaves. And that makes Tom Jones one of the earliest examples of crime fiction without a crime, where the mystery is not who committed the offense, but why the innocent must be condemned. In the end, Tom Jones is a comedy. It ends well. The rogue is forgiven, love prevails, the hypocrites are exposed. But the question remains, how many Toms are condemned in real life because they don't play the part? And the final question, if virtue becomes a performance and law becomes a theater, how can we tell who is truly good in a society that rewards only obedience? What happens to morality when the state is a stage? Nietzsche gave us the diagnosis. Fielding gave us the case file. And we, centuries later, are still living under the performance. Until next time, this is the criminal imagination. Remember what Nietzsche said, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly.